So I am here with Rawiyah Tariq, and Rawiyah is a Modern Witches teacher and has been a FemmeCee and as well as on our Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And I am welcoming Rawiyah to share some of their wisdom and to talk about modern witchcraft with me. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
I just want to also acknowledge the fifth element here, who is our audience, everyone who is enjoying this and tuning in. Thank you for being here and for absorbing this information. We're here for you. So I would love, Rawiyah, if you wouldn't mind sharing some, just like a brief, maybe introduction to who you are and kind of all the hats that you wear in this world.
Okay. Hi y'all. So I'm queer, I'm Black, I'm gender non-binary, I'm a writer, I'm a witch. I am also a storyteller. I'm a bit of a Renaissance. Always wanted to be a Renaissance. My teacher, when I was in fourth grade, what do you want to be? I'm like, I'm a Renaissance. My teacher, like, that's not possible. And I'm like, hold my fucking Kool-Aid. So I play piano and I use massage therapy. I'm a massage therapist. I basically have a healing practice where I use magic, massage, divination, manifestation, coaching, graphic design, web design, midwifing projects, taking you from like concept to full on creation, as well as like helping you make your. One more.
That's a really cute sneeze. Really.
Because I'm Southern. It's one day I'm gonna actually sneeze and it'll blow everybody's mind. Um, so I'll take you from like I had this idea to making it into something concrete in these very compassionate abundance mindset kind of ways. So I'm kind of like a one-stop shop. Like I also create content for people and it's the whole thing, but all of these things with the space forming, the heart holding, the holding, all are rooted in helping others recognize themselves as a sovereign embodiment and move into full self possession of themselves. All of my magical work and healing work is around people being able to tell their own stories in their own voices and to separate out what is not theirs and what is theirs. My goal is for people to know themselves in all their parts and accept all these parts with compassion. It doesn't mean that everything is love and light. It means if I've got some ratchet or fucked up kind of ways that I understand that and I can compensate for that. But to give people choice, and that's basically in a nugget like of what everything I do. Everything I do is grounded around people seeing themselves as sovereign and people being fully self-possessed.
Mm. That beautifully segues kind of into a conversation about witches, I think. Um,
Mm.
how would you define a witch? And do you call yourself a
Uh,
witch? Is that something that you proudly take on?
yes, I most definitely call myself a witch. It's felt like the best phrase for me to use. Is like an easy, like it's like this is just encaps everything. So for me, a witch is someone that works with their own power in the world and moves with their own power in the world. For me, when I it's so odd because I'm so intentional about words. So I have sometimes, and I'm also Virgo. So like I understand that my expectations out of myself are not all often realistic. They're like overboard. And so I don't always hold myself to the same expectations that I hold other people to. But for me, being a witch has meant that I align myself with the world around me. It means that I do the dangerous work of seeking. Seeking is not gentle because sometimes you see some shit you really don't want to see. And like that does inform your choices for the rest of your life. Like as a as a seeker and a finder, like I'm not just a seeker, I'm a fucking finder. And that affects you. Like you in opening you up for for experiences that change your lens on the world. And if your lens is changed and then you have to move from the choice of like, am I going to respect what I just saw? Am I going to hold what I just saw? That can change your world. And that can change how you interact with people, which can change whether or not people are going to be in your life if you move from this new energy. So, for me, a witch is someone who's willing to do that work. A witch is someone who's looking for understanding. A witch is someone who's looking to seek and exist in harmony with. A witch is someone who knows that they are not, that they are all, and they know at the same time that they are like nothing. And that comes across really like all or nothing. And it is like, that you are no one thing. You know that you are no one thing. You are in trying to be in alignment in the river with all things. And it's a difficult process to go through and be as a human being because we are so limited by our flesh and our meat brains. And so we're aware that we're too big, that we don't all fit in this flesh. We don't all fit in this meat brain. But we respect it because this body is such a tool for education that we couldn't have otherwise if we were just existing as spirit. So for me, being a witch is to be a bridge, and to try to hold on to your sanity as much as possible if you can. And if you're existing in between the worlds, that like you have like things that you need to help you do that existing, which is difficult as a modern witch. Modern mystics, oh my God. There were times when we were given the space to be fully who we needed to be, and our community supported us. Um, and that isn't happening now. That's out of alignment. So we have so many beautiful, deeply powerful people who aren't being held in the ways that they have been held. And we're losing so much. I feel so much magic, so much understanding, so many tools because our world has shifted in a way that doesn't honor the mystic,
Mm,
that doesn't honor the witch. So, so yeah.
that's very real. Yeah, I mean, as a modern witch, what do you think? Um, I don't know, so many good questions just spurred from what you just said, because I think it's true. There's so many people who are sort of I'm seeing kind of like an increase in interest in witchcraft,
Mm-hmm.
and people are really attracted to this idea of being empowered and living as a witch and in embodying that role. But then there's so much that's working against magical people. So it's a really interesting
Yes.
time, a confluence of really challenging energies. I'm wondering if there's anything that's been sort of like a helpful balm for you as you navigate that tension.
I think what has been helpful for me has definitely been like the 5 years of study that I've done in old Anderson Ferry. The biggest tenet of that is to know thyself in all thy parts. Uh, and that knowledge of myself has kind of made it impossible for me to be other than what I am. The awareness of how I'm moving and where I'm moving from has made it a choice between, am I going to lie to myself or am I going to live my life authentically? And if I want to have my best life, even though it might be difficult, I have to move through authenticity. So I have chosen to it's not that I don't give a fuck. I do. Like I feel it. Like I'm not fuckless. I feel it. But I have chosen this path. And so I don't have as much of a struggle between how to move or whether I'm going to do something or say something, because the one choice that I made was to choose this path. And that has been my North Star. So now all I have to do is deal with the fallout. Like, I don't have the struggle of choice, which is harder for me. Like, now I just have to deal with the fallout. Now I go into situations knowing that this is what it's going to be. This is how it's going to be. And so I can prepare as much as I can for self-care, for time away. I can do my boundary magic. I can do protection magic. I can do abundant. Like, I know I am ready for battle. And if anything has been a negative impact, it's been the hypervigilance I've had to live with, because I have to stay ready, or feel like I need to stay ready. I really should be trusting my ancestors more because they stay ready too. Uh, so yeah, it's been definitely has been a journey.
When
Did I
did you
answer the
feel like you
question?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When did you feel like um have you always felt like you're on the path, or what was that, like, choice moment like for you? When did it happen, and how did it come about?
I I legit think the choice happened before I came into this existence in this way, in this form, in this way. 'Cause I remember being a child and like I remember being like third grade and being like, we doing this again? And I didn't even know what this and again meant. But I was like, I am tired. And I'm like, how am I tired? Like, what am I, 8? Like, how like how am I tired? Like, why am I tired? Why am I exhausted all the time? Why does everything feel like a refresher instead of like it's like everything I knew that. So I don't think I was consciously making the choice until later in my life where I'm like, okay, we just gonna go full Monty in this. Like, but I do remember very young receiving information and downloads through images or voices or things like that. And so I think my natural curiosity helped. I also grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, so the city is super like suspicious and very much like super not suspicious, but we have our superstitions, we have our traditions. The dead are so thick down there. So I'm not sure if it was a choice that I made. Um it was definitely not a choice that I made younger. Um I was raised Roman Catholic and Southern Baptist, depending on what's coming out of the movies. If it was like something my mom wanted to see, we were Catholic because that was a short ceremony. And if it wasn't, then we were Baptist for like 4 hours. Um, so I don't know when I consciously made the choice. I was moving a lot through intuition and being and moving to what felt right to me, what felt like a fit to me. Um, but I do realize once I got older that this was a way I could live my life and I don't have to live it in silence. And that for me, it's essential to not live it in silence. Because if I would have seen that people like me existed when I was younger, I would have chose this faster.
Mhm.
So, as part of my path, I am out loud about who I am in all areas of my life, even with my struggles and even with my mess, because I needed to see that as a child.
Yeah.
I needed to see that as a young adult. Um, so yeah, it's a choice. It's definitely a choice now. But younger, it wasn't. Younger, I came in with everything that I need, just like everybody comes in with everything that they need. And I had to learn how to wield my sword.
Right. Yeah, and so what, in your personal lineage, your ancestors, or any kind of traditions, magical traditions you've been working in, how have they, come into your life, and what are they, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
So I'm very much of a hodgepodge. And I'm now defining the things that I am. So when I first came in, it was definitely how everybody, I feel like not everybody, but most people came in. Like it was Silver Raven's Wolf to ride a silver broomstick, which I'm just gonna say right here, it's on some fuck shit because I grew up as a baby witch thinking I needed to have time to raise a garden and then like harvest those herbs in the, and at 3 o'clock in the morning before the dew has dried on them. And like I needed to make my own paper and all this shit. Like Silver Raven what had me all the way fucked up. Like I was, I was like, I
I
can't
totally
not, this is what being
resonate.
a witch is. Right? And we should have got it. This fucking title of the book was to ride a silver broomstick. Just change broomstick with spoon. Like we like we no, it took me a decade to get that out of my system. Um and then it was definitely like Uncle Bucky's Big Blue Book, like all those type situations, from Birth to Summerlin, like all this stuff. Like so aside from that, a lot of my information on what witchcraft was rooted in information that came from old white men. And that didn't really reflect. I felt like I was going through the motions. So I even held, when I moved to San Jose when I was 21, I started a teaching coven, and it was supposed to be like we would teach each other.
Mhm.
We were supposed to teach each other, but that didn't happen. I ended up being the one that was holding a space. I called myself Den Mother. Like I was holding the space. I was, created a format for the ritual. I had even a handbook on how we would treat, like how we should treat each other. And like I ended up being the knowledge base. And I think we had that for like 7 years or so. I was very proud of myself because we had teenagers, as a teenager as well, come in, and I had met with her parents and everything, and I showed them the handbook and went through it, and I even signed an agreement saying like, either you come pick up your child. Like I haven't met your child's father, so he can't. I don't care if he show up. He ain't taking the child home. Like I will bring her home myself before I let her leave with anybody. Like I was fiercely protective because I wanted her to have access to this space, and I wish I had access to it at a young age. Um, so I kind of started from there creating my own traditions within the witches with that group, that I didn't know I was creating traditions. I was not aware. I was just like, I want to do this and we got to figure this out. And eventually, I think it was right after Twilight came out, because I remember everybody was talking about Twilight. They were talking about Twilight, and I was like, ugh, like, why do I want to strangle everybody here? I think it's best that I leave. So I left my own coven. Left my own coven. I left my own coven. Because in San Jose there weren't there was it was there's not that I didn't find many people of color, that like black or brown people who were doing this in this way. So I kind of like took a step back. I left my own coven. I set them up so they could take care of themselves. And I kind of went on my turn to find something that reflected me. And I found things that reflected me as a child of the African diaspora. And then I found things that supported me as a queer witch, but I wasn't finding something that supported both. So that's when I
Mhm.
started really looking into ancestor veneration. Then I also had to do work with myself and my ancestors to be like, ancestors, you hate me because because I'm queer and I'm witch and all this other stuff. And they're like, no, we love you. Like, not all of them. Some of them were like, we wish you made different choices. And I'm like, I wish you made different choices too, bitch. So look, we feel the same way about each other. Um, so
Mhm.
yeah, my ancestor veneration has definitely been a huge part of it. And then I started working with a teacher in Old Anderson Ferry. And while I love Old Anderson Ferry, I do believe there's a lot of things within it that have been definitely appropriated, and that needs work, and some people ain't ready to hear that about Old Fairy at all. Like it needs work. I realized that I went all the way up to initiation and decided like this isn't gonna work for me because I couldn't pledge myself to people who would do me violence because they weren't ready to do the self work around race and shit like that. So I definitely took a hard pause when it came to Anderson Ferry. Also, knowing that Anderson Ferry was handed to Victor Anderson by a Black woman, like, and they did not revere her at all. They were trying to say she was a myth, even though Victor Anderson was like, nah, this bitch was real. um so to know that this Black woman passed and initiated information and gave Victor Anderson information, yet every seeming aspect of stuff that would come up, or our stuff we did, and how our lore was written, stuff like never held that diversity, or Blackness, or imagery of where of all the different cultures that were drawn upon. I found this shit disrespectful. But I will say that my teacher at the time very much had a self-guided practice where we did the elemental work, and doing that elemental work for months at a time. Like, I was in elements for like 9 months to a year, working on something and working through me. And so I began to feel magic as a visceral thing. I began to feel magic as a mundane thing. Like, it was just part of my life. And she was really good at helping me make my magic into something that was as easy as breathing, because I just did it all the time. Just did it, like, got to stay in the river and be able to hold on to myself while I was in that river. Um, and so that has greatly influenced my work and my magic. That work that I've had to do to burn down my village and own myself completely, and then love that self, and also be able to admit when I didn't love myself, um, has been instrumental in my witchcraft now. So I don't really have a tradition now. And the only other thing that I'm doing is I found a root worker who I'm going to be studying with, and I'm learning Haitian Creole so I can go to Haiti and actually learn there. But I'm interested in learning voodoo and root working, which I have been all my life. Um, I guess with with teachers, with established teachers, who also do the root working without the Christian
Mhm.
influence.
Cool.
And I'm finding people to do that work with, and to do that study with. So that's what's next. And that's what's happening right now, and that's what's being furthered. And it's funny because I've always wanted to do root work. I mean, I grew up in New Orleans. I always wanted to do root working while I was doing root working, because so much of our superstitions and traditions are from that root working, from voodoo. But I wanted to do it without songs attached to it. I want to do it without Christianity attached to it. And that has been hard
Mm.
because of how oppressed my people were, and how religion was used. Um, Christianity was used as a tool to oppress them and hold them and keep them in a certain place. So our magical practices, like, reflect that. And so I'm trying to liberate that shit.
Wow.
Trying to liberate it.
That's going to be an exciting adventure and much needed.
Yes, it is so needed. And there's so many people who are already doing the work. And like, I'm like, I can't wait to connect with those people and to learn from and with those people. I'm very I'm very excited at the Sankofa of it all. And Sankofa, the word means to go back to the past, to retrieve knowledge and wisdom,
Mhm.
to bring forward for the future. So I'm very, like, it feels aligned. It feels good. I feel like I'm living my purpose with it.
Such a beautiful thing about living magically is that it's constantly evolving and you're constantly learning new things and the path is always
Hmm.
winding. Um, yeah, what would you do you have any advice for someone who is a seeker and is kind of walking down their path and is feeling maybe lost or like they're seeking for something? What advice would you give them?
I would say that it's it's the water. I would say that um the big thing about for my magical journey has not necessarily been I've realized I've also been seeking things that have already been in front of me. It's like the fish in the water, where the fish is like, I'm going to, I want to go to the water. And the other fish is like, well, wait, what? I don't understand. You're in the water. And the fish is like, no, I want to find water. I want to find water. And other fish is like, I really don't understand. Like, you are in like literally you're in the ocean. Like, how much more water do you need? And I think that is it. I think we become so used to or desensitized or pulled away from. It's kind of you're going through a resensitization process, like you're going through a reacquaintance process. You are not really just seeking, you are remembering. And I think that it's okay to feel impatient, um and it's okay to want things faster and sooner, but also know that you are getting what you need to get at the time and in pieces. It's like studying chemistry. Like, you just have to relax and believe that one day you're going to get it, and you will, because if you try to understand it, it's going to keep slipping like away. Like, it is there, it is in you, it is within you, it is without you. It is, you're constantly being fed messages through the people around you, through the media that you absorb, like through your intuition. Learn to listen. Like, there's definitely the thing of like what is it? What is it? Soft divine, light of touch, speaky little, listen much. Like, I feel like that's the biggest like part in that I definitely memorized that read. I was like, I can say it backwards and forwards. I'm such a good little witch. Um, but there's so much wisdom in that. Like, soft of eye, like literally let your eyes go soft to see the outlines around stuff. Light of touch, like when you touch something lightly as a massage therapist, doesn't mean that I'm not touching without depth. When I'm touching gently, I can feel the makeup of the skin and the muscles in different ways than when I just like put my hand just all in there. Like, I'm asking for permission. Speaky little, like listen, listen, look, observe. It's always been around you. It's always been you. Like, you're just learning how to tune into that radio station.
Mhm.
And it's like learning a different language. Like, you're not just seeking knowledge. Like, seeking knowledge for knowledge sake is cool. Like, seeking knowledge is great, but it's more than seeking knowledge. Is what the fuck are you gonna do with it once you get it?
Mhm.
Like, are you really ready for the changes that are gonna come as you seek this knowledge and as you receive this knowledge? And sometimes we can't see what we've asked for because we ain't really ready for all that fire. We ain't ready for it because we're trying to protect ourselves
Mhm.
from change. Like, our human bodies want to protect ourselves from change, want to remain the same because that equals safety. And I think the biggest thing for me that allowed me to move through this in different ways was realizing that I am choosing to not be safe. I'm choosing to not be safe in this work. Um, there's definitely risk, like there's something called RAC, which is risk aware consensual kink, and that's what magic is for me. It is risk aware consensual shit. Like, and I think those people who move through like knowing that this is not safe is are moving with a different level of respect for the work and for themselves. And if you're ready for change, and what that means to you and how that's going to affect your life, I think it'll be a little bit easier to see. All the work in this is not outward. A lot of it is internal,
Mhm.
preparing yourself to be able to hold the knowledge. And that takes time because you can't just pour hot water into a cold vessel. It's going to crack. And you need to survive this. You need to survive these downloads. You need to survive the information that you receive. So give yourself time and patience.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely remember being like a very impatient young witch, being like, I need to know everything and I need to experience everything. And it
Right?
doesn't work out that well.
No, no. 'Cause I would try to go up every talent tree. I'm like, "I'm gonna learn everything about herbs, I'm gonna learn everything about,
Right.
like, stones, I'm gonna learn everything about, like, the seasons and the elements of it." This is a lifetime of learning, and, like, I know there's a point where, like, one question will lead to 3 or 5 or 6 more questions,
Mhm.
and it can be, like, it can be infuriating, and,
Yeah.
but that's okay, like, enjoy the process. Enjoy It's like, enjoy your childhood, because you're gonna be an adult and then you're gonna have bills. Same thing with magic. Same thing with magic. Like,
I
yeah,
love
you'll
that.
have more freedom. You can rent a car, but you also gotta pay bills. So, so same thing with magic. No difference. No difference.
For real. Yeah, I think it's interesting what you were speaking to is really ties into that modern witch. I don't know, like the water we're swimming in as modern witches because like the culture or society or the patriarchy's largest spell is trying to convince us that there is no magic and that the world is
Yes.
disenchanted. But the work that we're doing is constantly being in the water.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes, and to be aware, like, not only be in the water, but be aware.
yeah,
Like, that awareness is so hard to continue to keep, and I think we have to build muscle in certain ways to be able to be in the awareness that we are in the water in the first place, like, to live in that space. And then you could start doing something with it once you know that you're in it, once you're aware that you're in it.
totally. Yeah, I mean, do you have sort of an act or a prayer or an embodied practice that you could sort of share, offer to a witch who's seeking in this moment?
Oh my god. I have so many things. Okay, so with the practices, I do in my business as sovereign embodiment. I do a lot of ritual creation for people. So I sit and I do heart holding with them. We talk about it, what's going on. I've had people who have therapists, their therapists have sent them to me to help
That's all.
create. Yeah, it's been amazing. It's been amazing. To have them create some kind of somatic spiritual part that helps them along with their healing process. And so when you say like rituals, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many. Like, I have an index, like I channel so many rituals for people. But I think one of the most beautiful rituals that I have made for someone, is for a trans woman who was um, who was like, "I'm never gonna have like a period. I'm never gonna do this. I'm never gonna do that." And I'm like, "Bitch, you want to bleed? Like, we'll get something together for you." So we all wore. She wore a white dress, and we all wore red dresses, and she was holding a bowl of red water, and we put our hand in the water and then whispered information to her and put our handprint on the dress. So she walked through the line of us, and we gave her the wisdom that we learned through bleeding so that she could have that wisdom with her. And when she came through, she was covered in red, and it was beautiful. So, but for like, like this kind of shit I like to do with people. Um, and they tell me what they're saying in the spaces between what they're not saying, like what they need. So I have a lot of rituals, but I think the ritual that I would say has been instrumental for me as a young as I wish I would have had this when I was younger, is I take a mirror, um and I will read a poem into it, which I can share with you, um or I can have it upload. I know it's on my Instagram, but the poem basically says things like, I love you. I love you when you're messy. I love you when you're petty. I love you when you're not pretty. I love you when you're exhausted. I love you when you're excellent. I love you when you're lost and confused. I love you like you are a part of me. Like, it's the self-love while walking a path that can feel so isolating, um, has been essential for me. So that has been a big, like, beautiful working, writing love letters to myself and to my child, um,
Mm,
has been amazing as well. Um, a lot of my magic rituals are all either cathartic or calling in. I have experienced a lot of trauma in my past, and so I kind of use that as a basis. The most recent thing I did was a kind of like an online ritual and how I created the, oh yes, as a modern witch. Oh, Instagram can also be your altar.
mm,
Instagram can also be, social media can be your altar. The more people that are reading your prayer or ritual and feeling it, is more power added to you and to them. I recently did something called an exorcism, a self exorcism for Mother's Day for the children of toxic parents. And I like the imagery that I used in it, using circles, a triangle, a square, a diamond. These are all parts of imagery that is used when you're doing demon work.
mhm,
So the way I wrote it and laid out my images and the colors that I used were aligned for demon work that would happen in your mind altar, in like you know in your the space between, oh my god, you know that
your mind altar is
yeah,
perfect,
your mind altar.
you know?
Yeah, yeah, your mind altar, your inner temple. That's the word I was talking about. But yeah, your mind altar, your inner temple. That like, and I took those imageries that you use when you are in these spaces, and I use graphics to recreate that in images over myself, and then did the exorcism in that way. And I shared it for people who needed to see it to go out in the world, so they needed that imagery as well as to healing, and know that it was even a possibility for them. And also every time they read it, I that spell was increased in power for me. And every time someone else read it, it was increased for them. So
Mm,
like, yo, modern witches use social media as an altar. Like it, oh my God, it's so. And also as a performance artist, my thing for witches and creating ritual, because I'm like, I'd like to share ritual, but I'd rather tell y'all how to create your ritual, is you do some shit every day. You have rituals you do every damn day. Like, you could be brushing your teeth and making it a ritual. You could be brushing your teeth and be like, you know, spirit, I'm putting sweetness in my mouth so I don't cuss this bitch out at work. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's as simple, it's as simple as that. Attach your rituals to stuff you always do. You always start with a cup of coffee or tea in the morning. When you pour whatever you pour in that, pour in abundance and sweetness and all that kind of stuff. Do things with intention. There is stuff you're already doing every day. Do it with intention. And as a baby witch, that will not only help you, like, or a modern witch, that will not only help you make ritual, but it'll also help you make ritual that you can keep up with, because you're not adding something new into your life. You already tagging it onto shit you already do.
that's
Um,
good
and it
advice.
also will then make your magic more mundane. Yeah, tack it on the shit you already do.
Mhm.
And it'll also make it more meaningful for you. Like, I'm definitely a pop culture witch. Like, I like, if like, I have so much Star Trek involved in my, my magical process, because I'm a big geek. Like, but like, you know, like, Captain Benjamin Sisko is my space Jesus. So like, if I feel like I need some help or like a strong father figure, it's not some like horn god that I've never met. It's like Benjamin Sisko, space Jesus, please, I beseech ye. You know, what is your wisdom? So, like, use imagery that means something to you, because it has so much power in it. And also recognize that these images that we've seen as powerful, these Jungian images that we were like, everyone believes in it. It's like, fuck, no, it doesn't. It's that comes from that, all that has passed through that images that we're told. So much of that has been taken from people assigned female at birth and indigenous peoples, then filtered and shifted and given back to us by like white straight men. Like, you do not have to take that in. You can have symbols and iconography that fits, looks, moves, breathes like you, so you don't have to create a bridge to it.
Mhm.
Like, it already has power for you because it has a visceral chemical reaction in your body. Like, if you need, I was doing a cleansing ritual for someone and they needed to cry, and like there was a normal music like that was like playing that I would normally use, and this person's completely different. I was like, shit. And then the song came in my head, and I'm like, no, I can't do that because that's going to be in my head all day. And they're like, is it about you or about them? So I was like, fuck. So I put it on, and it was, baby, you're a firework. Let me see your colors work. And I'm like pouring the spiritual bath over her to this music. Who is that? What is that? That's Eva Taylor. Who the fuck sings that
It's
song? I can't remember.
Katy
Katy
Perry.
Perry.
Mhm.
Yeah, to Katy Perry, and this bitch is crying. Like, it was what she needed to hear. Do you ever feel like a plastic? That it was, she needed that shit. Like, it resonated with her. So we were doing a white bath. Normally you have like drums and all that shit, to fucking Katy Perry. So like, so get in where you fit in with your magic, boo. Like really, really make it personal for yourself. That with rituals, that's all that's my biggest thing I could say. Like, know what you're doing, know what you want to do, have a clear goal. Try to use as little words as possible. Try to use feelings, because universe got jokes. I don't always use words. If I want a job, it's not what do I want the job or how much money I want. I feel like, how do I want to feel at work? How do I want to feel when I come home from work? Like,
Mhm.
I see my whole life. Like, I take in the whole picture, so there's no room for error. But there's space for it to happen how I couldn't have seen it happen, because I have limiting beliefs when it comes to abundance. I grew up in scarcity. So I have to let go of that. Like, I have to surrender that, but I have to know how I want to feel within my body. And so like, it'll figure it out. Like, the universe will be like, okay, we can work with that. We can work with that. And we can't fuck with you because you didn't use words. Um, and use things that you feel. The whole thing for me, my magic is like ecstatic. I have to feel it. I grew up in the South. Like, we catch the spirit. I have to catch the spirit in order for my magic to work. So do things that connect your body and your spirit, that embody you, and use the symbols that mean something to you. Know why you're doing it. Don't just do it because somebody said these are the steps of the recipe.
Mhm.
Like, learn some basic shit. Seriously, learn some basic shit. And then know what it means to you. Do what has meaning for you. That's where your power lies.
Such good advice. Magic is creative,
Mhm,
you know?
mhm. It's living. It changes. It changes. It changes. We change through it. Like, oh my God. Magic is to me, magic and oral tradition are kind of similar. And we're also seeing like oral tradition is like supposed to be an inferior form of passing knowledge. But that's on some fuck shit, because when you have oral tradition, you can tell the story, but the storyteller can choose what's important, what to emphasize. The storyteller can change the story so that it matches the time.
Mhm.
So in oral traditions, you do have these history and lineages, but the different tales they'll mean something. They'll continue to mean the same thing because they shift to keep up with the meaning of the world. And I feel the same thing has to be done for our magic.
Mm.
It needs to shift to keep up with our modern world and to keep up with us.
Absolutely. Oh, this has been such an inspiring conversation. I could honestly talk to you for many hours, but time is a thing. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me. Always a pleasure. I would love it if you could share how folks can follow you and work with you.
Yeah, follow me. Oh, first I want to say thank you so much for doing this. And I do the Modern Witches has changed my life. I want this officially on the record. Like, I think y'all are so amazing. You're so boss. Like, it's an honor, a privilege to be a part of it. Um, and yeah, it's and healing in so many ways. So yeah, I'm grateful for y'all. And if you want to find me, you can find me. Easiest way to connect to me is on Instagram. Mammy is dead. That is MAMMY is dead. Is my handle. I also have mammyisdead.com. You can find me there. And from there you can come out to you can see the different projects that I work on. My own podcast, My Black Body Podcast, a project to raise funds for Black and Brown for Black, queer, and trans therapists in need of a fucking break so they're not crispy. Project Insane that I do with my partner Ella Afori. And you could reach my business of Sovereign Embodiment, where we do all kind of ritual, massage, coaching, and manifestation creation in multiple ways for you. So come through. I still offer barter and trade because I try to take as much money out of the system as possible. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Amazing. We'll put all that information in the caption too, so everyone can access easily. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Endless gratitude for you.
Thank you. It's in the same. Thank you, Casey.